You may have heard the term net neutrality in recent years, or, like me, you may have never heard the term, and that's okay. While many argue that net neutrality is crucial to maintaining a free and fair internet for everyone, I'd argue that net neutrality is unnecessary and ultimately harmful to both internet users and providers. Net neutrality can most simply be defined as the principle that internet service providers cannot block or throttle internet traffic. Think of this like pinching a hose. It makes the water come out in trickles rather than a seamless flow. Furthermore, internet service providers cannot prioritize their business partners or favor some websites or services over others. As an example, imagine you're sitting down to watch Netflix, and an internet service provider would not be able to slow down your connection because you're watching a streaming service they themselves do not own. That is what people who favor net neutrality warn of anyways. Though, I cannot remember the last time I was using a website or streaming service and my internet seemed to slow down. To properly evaluate this debate, I'd first like to look into the past of net neutrality. While the concepts of net neutrality have been around since the early days of the internet, the term was first coined in 2003 by Columbia law professor Tim Wu. It wasn't until 2015 that net neutrality was actually introduced into the law by the Obama administration. Net neutrality was short-lived and only was active for 2 years before being appealed in 2017 by the Trump administration. This means we've gone more years without net neutrality than we have with it. This raises the question, was it even necessary in the first place? My answer to that is no, it wasn't necessary. And it certainly isn't necessary now. In fact, there have only been 12 legal cases regarding net neutrality ever. That sounds like a lot, although given the time internet service providers have been around, it truly isn't. The first commercial internet service provider in the United States sprang up in 1989, and the last legal issue over net neutrality happened in 2014, which was over a decade ago. These 12 cases consisted mainly of internet service providers blocking customers from a particular service, such as Netflix or Skype. Although these have been issues in the past, they, as with any legal issue, were addressed in the courts. Therefore, they have been resolved, and companies, in this case internet service providers, now know the legal consequences of performing such actions. Although it might seem like internet service providers would take advantage of the lack of laws, as they have done in the past, it's more than important to address the difficulties that already come with becoming an internet service provider. It takes a large amount of money upfront to become one, as well as an extreme amount of effort. Therefore, any additional regulations, net neutrality laws, are unnecessary. In fact, not only are they unnecessary, but they are also harmful to both the customer as well as the provider. More laws, especially to the extent of the ones supporters of net neutrality suggest, would make internet service providers have a harder time not only functioning, but also providing to their customers. Furthermore, further people would want to go into the already small and dwindling resource that is the internet service provider industry. Having more laws and regulations on net neutrality would eliminate the uniqueness that every industry needs to run. Think of it like cable TV providers. They're able to offer packages with different channels at different prices, letting consumers choose what suits their individual needs. Why should internet service providers be able to do the same? Net neutrality would eliminate that flexibility, forcing a one-size-fits-all model that doesn't benefit consumers or promote innovation. For instance, imagine a senior citizen wants to purchase internet to send out emails. Why should they have to pay a price for an internet service that is more adept at watching TV, making in-depth searches, as well as working from home? The answer is they shouldn't. It just isn't fair. Now, take into consideration that there's an internet service provider that offers internet that may be slower, but at a lower rate, which would be more fitting for the senior citizen. Yes, it's slower, but it's cheaper and more fitting for this customer. Although it might seem fair that each customer would pay the same price for the same internet, it doesn't make sense on an individual level. To put it simpler, imagine trying to look across a 5-foot fence. Your friend is 4 foot while you're 6 feet. Being equal, you and your friend would have a foot-tall box to stand on to see over the fence. However, being fair, your friend would be given both boxes so they too can see over the fence. So although net neutrality might seem fair on the surface, it actually creates more limitations and hurts both consumers and companies in the long run. Net neutrality generalizes consumers and puts them all into one box, rather than allowing them to choose the plan right for them, like how cable providers are able to. Net neutrality ignores individuals' needs and uses the idea of the exact same internet experience to lure people in, when in reality, each and every person needs a different type of service to meet their budget and, more importantly, their needs. The fear that internet service providers will abuse their power is mainly a hypothetical, irrational fear. Although there have been some cases where this has been apparent, there hasn't been a case in over a decade. As with any industry, the law is busy. Why should we focus on hypothetical situations instead of real issues that are truly impacting our society as a whole? Laws and regulations should be reserved for real and ongoing issues that are actively causing harm to our society, not what ifs that are causing absolutely no harm whatsoever. If we gave in to every single one of these what ifs, we'd all be living in padded rooms. The idea of net neutrality is a good one, in the hypothetical sense, that is. But overall, it is harmful for consumers, for internet service providers, and the internet as a whole. Overall, net neutrality promises equality, but delivers limitations. It deprives internet service providers of the freedom of innovation and consumers of the authority to choose. Just like cable TV or mobile plans, the internet should be able to offer options tailored to individual needs and not a one-size-fits-all model disguised as fairness. Regulation based on fear of what might happen is not only short-sighted, but it's dangerous. If we want an internet that grows, adapts, and serves everyone differently, and more importantly, fairly, we must reject the rigid rules of net neutrality and trust both the market and the users to decide what's best. Thank you.